Remember to give the video a thumbs up, share your insights in the comments, and subscribe to keep up with our newest narratives. Never did I foresee that a single conversation could rattle the very core of all I believed to be true. It began on a seemingly unremarkable Friday evening. Benjamin, my husband, had been putting in late hours more frequently than usual, and that evening was no different. He had indicated that his superior, Gabriel, wished to converse about something significant during dinner, and to my astonishment, I received an invitation to join them. My encounters with Gabriel had been limited to a few occasions, each taking place within the confines of professional environments. He was a man in his early 60s, exuding confidence, articulate in his speech, and possessing an undeniable charm. He possessed an effortless charm that drew people in, yet there lingered an air of mystery, as if he were always concealing a part of himself. The prospect of the dinner did not fill me with anticipation. Benjamin's work events often exuded a certain rigidity, characterized by obligatory small talk and insincere laughter. Yet, in my desire to be supportive, I chose a sleek navy dress, formal enough to suit the occasion, yet comfortable enough to allow me to remain true to myself. Upon our arrival at the restaurant, an upscale establishment adorned with dim lighting and the gentle strains of soft jazz wafting through the air, I immediately observed that the table was arranged for 3, rather than 4. "Where's your wife?" I inquired as Gabriel and I settled into our seats. For a fleeting instant, his smile wavered. "Ah, she's out of town visiting her sister," he replied with a nonchalant air. "Just the 3 of us tonight." A waiter approached, pouring a rich, deep red wine into our glasses, and for a moment, the conversation flowed as anticipated. Discussions of work, company changes, the familiar routine. Yet, as we transitioned from appetizers to the main course, Gabriel redirected the dialogue. "I must say, Benjamin," he remarked, swirling the wine in his glass, "you're an incredibly fortunate man." Benjamin chuckled, casting a glance in my direction. "I know." Gabriel's gaze held mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary before he continued. "A woman like that, graceful, intelligent, and still stunning at 47, that's not something you see every day." My cheeks flushed with warmth. The compliment caught me off guard, yet it was the manner in which he delivered it, slow and deliberate, that lingered in the air, as if he wished for the words to find their place between us. Benjamin, with his characteristic laid-back demeanor, chuckled softly. "You're flattering her, Gabriel." Gabriel returned the smile, yet there lingered an enigmatic quality in his gaze. "Perhaps," he mused, savoring a sip of wine, "or perhaps I'm simply being truthful." The dialogue shifted, yet I couldn't dispel the sense that Gabriel was guiding it toward a particular destination. His words, his glances, each carried a hidden purpose beneath the surface. As dessert was finally presented, a sense of unease settled over me, though the reason eluded my grasp. At that moment, Gabriel leaned in, his elbows finding a perch on the table. "There's something that's been on my mind for some time now," he remarked. His voice was calm, unwavering. There was an air of the unexpected. Benjamin arched an eyebrow, a hint of intrigue in his expression. "Unconventional." Gabriel's eyes darted to me for a fleeting moment before settling back on Benjamin. As we journey through the years, life often settles into a familiar rhythm. The comfort of routine can envelop us, yet there lies a thrill in shattering that predictability. Venturing beyond the confines of expectation can awaken a sense of exhilaration. I adjusted my position, feeling a knot form in my stomach, though it wasn't the sumptuous meal that caused it. An invisible heaviness lingered in the atmosphere, laden with unarticulated meanings. Benjamin's brow furrowed. "I'm not certain I understand," Gabriel breathed out, as though weighing his words with deliberation. "I hold you in high regard, Benjamin, and I honor the commitment you've made in your marriage. But let's just say I've always believed that certain boundaries can be flexible, if the circumstances are right." A hush enveloped the table. My heart raced. I sensed deep down that whatever Gabriel was about to utter would alter the trajectory of the evening. Then he gazed deeply into my eyes and said, "What if, just once, we allowed those boundaries to bend?" The air within my lungs became dense as stone. My fingers curled firmly around the stem of my wineglass. Benjamin's face was a canvas of emotions, caught in a delicate balance between bewilderment and disbelief as he absorbed the words. In that instant, my mind raced with the question, what does he expect us to say? A chill coursed through me, stark against the cozy warmth of the restaurant's lighting. I found my fingers tightening around the wineglass as Gabriel's words hung in the air, dense and unavoidable. Benjamin blinked, his face transforming from bewilderment to an inscrutable expression. "I apologize, Gabriel, but I believe I require some clarification on what you mean precisely." Gabriel reclined in his chair, a gradual, understanding smile spreading across his face. He appeared neither flustered nor embarrassed, as though engaging in this sort of conversation was as second nature to him as talking about stock market trends. "I meant exactly what I said," he responded, swirling the remnants of his wine in the glass. A shift in viewpoint, a departure from the ordinary. My stomach churned with unease. Was he truly proposing what I feared he was? I stole a glance at Benjamin, wishing he would intervene to establish a firm boundary, yet he remained still, lost in thought. The silence hung heavily in the air, more disconcerting than Gabriel's words. "I'm not sure what you're expecting here," I finally replied, my voice steady yet resolute. Gabriel let out a breath, a hint of amusement dancing in his expression. "No expectations, just an idea." His eyes darted between me and Benjamin. "You've been married for over 20 years, haven't you?" Benjamin nodded with a hint of caution. 23. Gabriel smiled once more. "That's quite a stretch of time. A truly exquisite phenomenon indeed. However, enduring unions, they certainly undergo transformation, don't they? Individuals undergo transformation. Change is essential. At times, nurturing a flame requires venturing beyond the familiar." My heart raced within my chest. The thundering of my pulse echoed in my ears. "Are you suggesting? Do you believe we ought to stir the pot?" I asked, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Gabriel inclined his head ever so slightly, his eyes unwavering. "What I'm suggesting is that at times, sharing someone you cherish doesn't equate to a loss. It can be a profound experience." A sudden breath hitched in my throat. The implication hung in the air, unmistakable and devoid of ambiguity. He was referring to me, to my marriage. It was a notion I had never truly contemplated, an arrangement that seemed foreign to me. I glanced at Benjamin, my gaze probing his features for a hint of disapproval, for a resolute boundary that would affirm we were not the sort of couple to entertain such ideas. Yet, rather than the expected anger or revulsion, I found something entirely different reflected in his eyes. In that moment, doubt crept in and a tightness gripped my stomach. "Benjamin." My voice emerged with a gentleness I hadn't meant to convey, a subtle entreaty. He swept his fingers through his hair, letting out a long breath before he finally found the words to say. Gabriel, I'm uncertain about your perception of our marriage. Yet you haven't declined. Gabriel interrupted with a seamless grace, placing his empty glass down with a soft clink, his eyes sparkling with an enigmatic glimmer that eluded my understanding. Assurance? Entertainment? Benjamin lapsed into silence once more, and I sensed the tension enveloping us, heavy and suffocating like a dense fog. I took a deep breath. Why was he not putting an end to this? What was the source of the hesitation? Look, Gabriel continued, his voice soft yet firm, I'm not trying to offend anyone. This is not a matter of undermining your marriage. Rather, it is the exact contrary. It revolves around reshaping boundaries, contemplating whether those boundaries truly exist at all. My breath was shallow. The soft jazz from the restaurant faded into the background, becoming almost a mere echo, as if the universe had contracted to this singular moment, this table and the insurmountable predicament Gabriel had laid before us. Then, with the same nonchalance that had marked the beginning of their exchange, Gabriel reached into his pocket, produced a sleek black card, and glided it across the table toward Benjamin. Just consider it, he remarked. If curiosity triumphs over certainty, you know where to locate me. Benjamin fixed his gaze on the card. Immovable, I found myself unable to gaze upon it. I had encountered men like Gabriel previously, dominant, commanding, so familiar with obtaining their desires that they rendered the most absurd proposals seemingly logical. Yet, I had never imagined I would find myself seated opposite one, much less being the focus of his intrigue. I found myself in desperate need of air. I felt an urgent need to escape that place. With a sudden motion, I pushed my chair back and rose to my feet, my heart racing fiercely. I believe we have reached the conclusion of our discussion. Gabriel appeared unfazed. He merely offered a smile. Fair enough, he replied, lifting his hands slightly, as if yielding to an unseen force. No pressure. Merely a suggestion. Benjamin finally stirred, shaking off the remnants of whatever days had ensnared him. Yeah. I believe it's time for us to leave, he murmured, pushing the unplayed card back toward Gabriel. I chose not to wait. I pivoted and exited the restaurant, scarcely acknowledging the inquisitive stares of the surrounding patrons. The brisk night air struck my face with a sharpness that felt almost like a slap, yet it failed to dispel the fog in my mind. Footsteps echoed behind me, unmistakably Benjamin's presence drawing nearer. I anticipated that he would be equally unsettled, equally appalled by the events that had transpired. Yet, when he finally uttered his thoughts, a new surge of astonishment washed over me. Do you think he was serious? I halted, my heart racing. I pivoted to confront my husband, scanning his face for any sign of doubt, desperately wishing I had misunderstood him. Yet, the gaze in his eyes confirmed my fears. In that instant, a revelation struck me, one far more startling than Gabriel's audacious proposal. Benjamin was not merely unsettled by Gabriel's suggestion. He was contemplating it. The journey back was steeped in an oppressive silence. Benjamin's hands clutched the steering wheel with an intensity that betrayed his tension. His jaw clenched, gaze unwavering on the asphalt stretching before us. I remained rigid in the passenger seat, arms folded, my thoughts swirling in a tumultuous haze from the events that had just unfolded. Gabriel's words reverberated in my mind. At times, nurturing a flame requires venturing beyond the familiar. A wave of nausea washed over me. As soon as we crossed the threshold of our home, I slipped off my heels and turned to Benjamin, my heart racing. "You can't be seriously considering this," I urged. He let out a sharp breath, running his fingers through the back of his neck. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. That moment of uncertainty sent a shiver through me. I gulped. "Benjamin, I don't know," he confessed, finally locking eyes with me. "Caught me off guard." "That's putting it mildly," I retorted sharply. "It was utterly inappropriate, and the fact that you didn't shut it down immediately." I shook my head, the words caught in my throat. He sighed, closing the distance between us. "It caught me off guard, okay? I hadn't anticipated it." Neither had I, yet I didn't linger in contemplation. My voice faltered, the heaviness of the evening bearing down on me. "What is there to contemplate, Benjamin? This isn't who we are." He averted his gaze for a prolonged moment, then sank down heavily onto the couch. "I understand," he murmured softly. "But I can't say. Perhaps he has a point about certain matters." I gazed at him, my stomach churning. "Right about what?" Benjamin exhaled slowly, his hands rubbing his face in frustration. "We've been married for 23 years, Oscar. Our love for one another flourishes, and we share a fulfilling life together. Yet I refuse to believe you haven't experienced it. The daily ritual, the predictability." He looked up at me, a wary expression crossing his face. "It's not bad, but it lacks the essence it once had." I crossed my arms, feeling my heart quicken. "So this is your answer?" "No, that's not what I'm saying," he replied hastily. I find myself at a loss for words. Gabriel prompted me to contemplate matters I had never even thought of before. I shook my head, feeling a constriction in my chest. "I can't believe this." Benjamin ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. "Oscar, I'm not saying I want to do it. He paused once more. "I simply need to grasp why this notion unsettles me so deeply." It was as if the very earth beneath my feet was transforming, thrusting me into a parallel reality of my marriage where my husband was contemplating this. I inhaled slowly, striving to regain my composure. "Benjamin, I can't fathom what thoughts are swirling in your mind at this moment, but allow me to clarify one thing. I'm not interested." He nodded in quick understanding. "I understand. And that suffices for me, is it?" I challenged. "Because you keep insisting you're merely thinking, but what if that thinking evolves into curiosity? And does curiosity evolve into something entirely different?" Benjamin let out a deep breath, his fingers massaging his temples. "I adore you, Oscar. I don't want to lose what we have." "Then don't risk it," I replied gently, my voice tinged with pain. "Because even contemplating it alters everything." He lifted his gaze to meet mine, an inscrutable expression in his eyes. "I don't wish to transform what we have," he whispered. I scanned his features, seeking the familiar visage of the man I had always placed my faith in. He remained present, yet uncertainty had also taken its place. For the first time in 23 years, I found myself questioning whether love alone could suffice. The ensuing days unfolded with an air of tension, laden with unvoiced sentiments and cautious looks exchanged in silence. Benjamin endeavored to maintain a facade of normalcy, brewing coffee in the early hours and inquiring about the events of my day. Yet an unspoken burden lingered between us, a heaviness neither of us could find the means to dispel. A lingering sensation tugged at me, suggesting that a change had quietly taken place. Despite Benjamin's insistence that he wasn't interested, I sensed that the idea had taken root in his mind, lingering far longer than it ought to have. That singular realization prompted me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew. On Friday evening, I found myself seated alone on the back porch, a glass of wine cradled in my hand, as I observed the sky transform into a canvas of warm pinks and oranges. The entire week had slipped away as I found myself replaying that night at Gabriel's house, dissecting every moment, every glance, every pause. Benjamin finally emerged into the open air, pausing momentarily before taking a seat beside me. "You've been rather silent," he remarked. With a deliberate breath, I released the air slowly. "Contemplation has occupied my mind." He inclined his head, biding his time. I pivoted to meet his gaze. "Benjamin, I must seek clarity. What caused your hesitation that evening? What was the reason for not shutting it down right away?" He averted his gaze, his fingers intertwining tightly. "I mentioned it before. I was taken by surprise," I insisted. "That isn't the complete truth. You pondered it deeply." He took a deep breath, then locked eyes with me. "Indeed I did." The revelation struck me with the force of a blow to the abdomen, despite my prior awareness of it. He pressed on, uncertainty lingering in his voice. Perhaps it was the manner in which Gabriel presented it, as if it were an ordinary occurrence, something that couples engage in after sharing a significant amount of time together, just like we have. In that fleeting moment, a question flickered through my mind. Are we overlooking something essential? I placed my glass on the table, arms crossed, as Benjamin let out a deep breath. "At this moment, I understand that this does not define our essence. That is not what I desire." He paused, a moment of uncertainty hanging in the air, before finally extending his hand toward mine. "Oscar, I cherish what we share. Yet I fear the possibility of stagnation." I examined his features, searching for authenticity, for remorse, for the person with whom I had crafted my existence. "Then we mend ourselves," I murmured gently. "Not through the words of men like Gabriel, but by recalling our true selves, by selecting one another each and every day." Benjamin's hold on my hand grew firmer. "I choose you." After what felt like an eternity, I finally sensed the sweet relief of being able to breathe once more. I nestled against him, allowing my head to find a comfortable perch on his shoulder. We must always guard against allowing others to dictate the essence of our union. He pressed his lips gently to the crown of my head. Indeed, the evening unfolded, as the tension gradually yielded to a gentler, more familiar sensation. We lingered in quietude, the burdens of the past week gradually dissipating. Gabriel had sown a seed of uncertainty, yet ultimately, it served as a poignant reminder of what was genuinely significant. One another.